Hello crafty friends, it's Jess from jesscrafts.com, and today I'm here with a card for Cat Scrappiness. As you know, I am a member of the design team, and so I'm going to be sharing some of the latest products from Cat Scrappiness, specifically the Crafter's Essentials 1 die set, which is where I pulled the 3-panel die here that I'm using. But I will have a video that just kind of walks you through the entire die set, as it is a huge set with lots of very basic but helpful, and some of them are quite unique little pieces that you can use on a variety of cards. In fact, this 3-panel piece here is something that I haven't seen done quite the same way before, and so when I looked at it, I thought it would be perfect for little critters to be poking out. But specifically, I thought of the Heffy Doodle Oceans of Love stamp set. Heffy Doodle is new to the Cat Scrappiness store, and I really admire their cute little images, so I thought I would make an aquarium scene with the Heffy Doodle images and this 3-panel die from the Crafter's Essentials stamp set, or die set, sorry. I decided to let my sequins act as my inspiration, since I knew this would wind up being a shaker card, because like I said, I wanted it to appear like an aquarium. So with that in mind, I picked out the mint sparkle sequins, which might not have been the most obvious choice at first because they don't really have any blue in them, and that would go well with an ocean card, but instead they have this mint color, which reminded me a lot of cracked pistachio, and they have a pink color, which at first I thought would pair well as tattered rose, but once I started adding the tattered rose to my cardstock, I realized that was a little too light, and so I covered it with worn lipstick. Here I'm trying to create a background, and I'm going to primarily use cracked pistachio, but I do want to add an element of blue into it, in part because the cracked pistachio is actually a little bit greener than the sequins, but also so it does look a little bit more like an ocean background. In this card, I'm not too worried about being exactly right. It is a very sort of whimsical, fanciful card overall. So I do kind of go back and forth on some of those choices as well. But I decided that I'd add a little bit of that peacock feathers in there to create the look of an ocean. And these are the Distress Oxide inks, but regular Distress inks would react pretty similarly. I'm also going to spritz on some shimmer spray and some clear water. And that's just to give an effect of an ocean, because the Distress ink will react and create little puddles and dots and some interest there. And also, I wanted to complement the shimmer of the sequins with the shimmer of the sparkly background. To color the narwhal, I filmed coloring it in traditional colors. And then after looking at it and deciding on the card, I realized that I didn't want to use a gray narwhal. So I don't have the filming of the narwhal I actually colored, but I'm going to talk about how I did it and share the colors with you, and I'll also make sure that they're down in the video description. So here with the narwhal, I'm starting with the C00, and I covered the whole thing. Then I added in some shadows with the C3 and blended that out with the C1. This was inspired by looking at a narwhal. I didn't just kind of guess at the colors. I wanted it to be realistic at first, and so I googled some pictures, and rather than googling cartoon narwhals, which is sometimes a good idea, like googling cartoon of whatever animal you're trying to draw, I decided to try to add a little bit of realism to it, even though these are very cutesy stamps and unrealistic in many ways. So narwhals they do have pretty dark gray tops and then very light, almost white bottoms, and so I'm trying to get that effect here by leaving the belly and the bottom of the face area white, but they also have these spots all over them, and so to create those spots, I'm going to come in with a C9. Now this is actually a little bit difficult to see what I'm doing because I'm holding my marker almost vertical. And the reason for that is it will give me smaller dots. If I were to hold my marker on the side, the dots are going to be bigger. So if you're looking for those little fine details, I suggest holding the marker as straight up as possible. But also you may have noticed that I took off both cap ends. And this isn't always necessary, but if your marker is even a little bit over full, sometimes a little bit extra will drip out, and by opening both ends of the marker, it kind of balances it out. I don't know quite how to describe it, but it lets that, it kind of equalizes the pressure or something. I just noticed that if a marker is having any trouble with leakage, I can mitigate that by opening the other end of the marker. Now, as I come in with the C7, I am dotting the edges, and that is to create a mostly solid look, but I don't want to drag my marker across. I'm still dotting the whole time. I'm just dotting much closer together to really fill in those spaces. And so the majority of the area is the C7, but there's a little bit of C5 and a little bit of C9 in there to create the dots. Now, as I mentioned, this is not actually the narwhal that I use, and I do instead use RV000, RV00, and RV02 to create the base layer of the pink narwhal that I use, and then I use RV02, R11, and R20 to create the dots. But really, you could use whatever color combination that you want, but if you want to get because I'm not doing a realistic narwhal anyway, so you could make your narwhal blue, purple, whatever colors kind of suit you. But I think that understanding the dotting technique gives it a fun look of realism and an interesting, to keep those realistic looks across the fanciful colors, make it just read more like an actual narwhal. Whereas if you did, if the coloring and shading was a little off and you chose a sort of exotic color, sometimes it might be not read quite as well. But, do what you want and have fun with it. I just wanted to kind of share my process for making accurate colorings, even of my little critters. It's usually much easier to do on bigger images. But anyway, here's where I'm testing it out. And I'm thinking, I like the way that accurate narwhal looks. I think that it's really cute. And I definitely will use him on another project. But for this particular card, I was kind of going for a more fanciful thing. I was wanting the narwhal to really be the star of the show. So I adhered the narwhal to the frame, but such that the narwhal is right up against the glass or the transparency. It's obviously not really glass, but I'm kind of thinking of it as an aquarium. So it's like he's pressed up against the glass and the other animals are sort of in the background swimming around behind my narwhal, who's the star of the show. And that's because the sentiment says you're a star wall. And so kind of trying to emphasize that is the star, the most important one. I covered my window with some generic transparency. It's really cheap at office supply stores, but you can get really good quality heat resistant stuff at stores like Scrappiness. So it depends on what your purpose is. And when you save a little bit of money on those generic supplies, all the more money to save for Cat's Sequins so that you can fill your shakers. And that I personally like to have really full shakers. Like I like to be very generous with my sequins. So even if I only get a few cards out of a single bag, I like the way that looks. And so I dumped a bunch of sequins into it, and then I put my ocean background on top of it. I did use a double layer of foam tape, and I didn't bother to put foam tape in between the pieces of glass, quote unquote glass, and that's just because I want it to look like a big open background, and it would be really fussy to try to get foam tape behind those teeny tiny things. I'm going to trim off any of the extra, and then I will be able to just mount it on an A2 size card. It'll have a pretty generous border, but again, I think that helps to draw attention to it. And that's it for my card today. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. If you are interested in more crafting tutorials, be sure to subscribe to my channel or to the Cat Scrappiness channel, whichever one you're watching on. Subscribe to both, either, etc. I will leave you the links to the Cat Scrappiness store for the products that I used today, as well as a coupon code that you can use over there. Thank you so much for watching. Have an awesome day. Bye.